On today's show, the LA Clippers backup point guard situation without Russell Westbrook is a conversation. Who's it going to be? Is it going to be Kris Dunn? Is it going to be KPJ? Is it going to be Bones Hyland? In this episode, I am going to be making a case for all three and telling you which one I think is the safest bet to get consistent rotation minutes backing up James Harden on today's Locked On Off-Season Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir, you are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, born and raised in LA, and entering my 20th season as a Clipper fan. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod and subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for even more LA Clipper, LA Sports, and NBA content. Just posted a video of my tour visit to the Intuit Dome, which is opening up in 2 days. Can you believe it? We are finally here. This episode, we're going to talk about the backup point guard situation. I've been teasing it for a couple of days, but finally we're going to address it. And before we do that, this episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the best place to get great deals on tickets last minute. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. All right, let's get into it like the best stadium in the league. The first, in my opinion, candidate for the consistent backup point guard role is Kris Dunn. Now, the choices are Kris Dunn, KPJ, and Bones Hyland. We're going to explore Kris Dunn first. He's the guy that I think is the safest bet of the three that's going to get consistent minutes. Why, you might ask? Well, he's the only one of the three that can say that they were actually in an NBA rotation last season. Of course, Kevin Porter Jr. wasn't in the league. Bones Hyland obviously wasn't in our rotation after we traded for James Harden. Kris Dunn started 32 games with the Utah Jazz, played in 66 games, and averaged 19 minutes a game. And in those 19 minutes, he averaged 5 points, 3 rebounds, and 4 assists. So a little bit of everything. Shot 47% from the field and 37% from three, which is very solid. But the main thing that Kris Dunn brings and is reliable with is his defense. His on-ball, point-of-attack, perimeter defense. He can move his feet. He's strong. Good lateral ability. Lateral quickness that can stay in front. And I talked about all of last season. We need more guys at the point of attack to help Terrence Mann. If Terrence Mann is your best on-ball defender and he's guarding the best players on the other teams, you're not going to win a championship. And that's not to say that Terrence is a bad defender. We love Terrence. He's my favorite player on the team. He's a good defender. He did a great job on Luka Doncic in the first round, but a lot of those were just shots that Luka was missing, that he usually makes, and he ended up making in the next 2 rounds. Terrence is a very solid defender, but he had too much responsibility last season. This season, we have brought in guys with a focus on look. Outside of James Harden and Norman Powell, probably. We'll see if Norman Powell continues to be on the team, but as of now, he is. And I personally am of the camp that I want him on the team because I love what he brings off the bench. And, of course, I've been a fan of him since UCLA. And I honestly think, even though he has his limitations, he's not a guy that can create his own shot, not the best defender in the world, he is very reliable. He's a consistent shot maker. His shooting splits are always good. He gets to the line. And more often than not, he gives you what you expect from him. Kris Dunn, Derrick Jones Jr., and Nicholas Batum were all brought in to bolster our point of attack defense, our switchability, and our perimeter defense in general around Terrence. Now we have 4 guys, assuming Kris Dunn will be the backup point guard like I am predicting, the safest choice. We now have 3 guys, 4 actually, with DJJ, Nico, Kris Dunn, and Terrence that are ahead of Kawhi Leonard in the pecking order for guarding an elite player. And teams don't willingly put Kawhi Leonard in the action. They're not going to say, hey, I want the guy that Kawhi is guarding to come set a screen so we can switch Kawhi onto the ball. That's not what they do. That's not what teams do. So we now have so many players to preserve Kawhi defensively and just let him be a help defender, which he is still so good at. He's got great hands, great anticipation. He reads the game well. And one thing I love about Kawhi is that 97% of the time, random number I know, but legitimately 97% of the time, he's engaged defensively and understands what's going on around him. He really has that want to when it comes to defense. And see, like James Harden, for example, I don't think he's necessarily always been a bad defender by technique in terms of like closeouts being bad or not being able to move his feet when he's challenged one-on-one. And of course, we know he's a solid post defender. With James Harden, a lot of it's that want to. How much do you want to play defense? Kawhi Leonard is one of those stars. Paul George kind of at the same time was on the same type of time to obviously a lesser degree. Paul George with his length and size and his defensive motor is always going to be a better defender than James Harden. But as crazy as it sounds, during the games where James Harden was playing his good defense, you didn't notice that much of a defensive gap during that 26-5 stretch when James Harden was defending from Paul George. But with Kawhi, I did. Because Kawhi to me is a significantly better defender than Paul George because of that consistency on that end of the floor. And we're making his life easier with the Kris Dunn. And so that I've given you the reasons why I think Kris Dunn's going to be the guy. He has been brought in for a specific reason. I think his bad games will be like, oh, he's not shooting very well. He hasn't been great offensively, but he's always going to give us that defense. And guys that guard that may not be the best offensively, they have a better chance of getting into rotations than guys that are really just offense-heavy guys with the ball in their hands and they can't defend. And Bones Hyland, when he is playing bad basketball, that's what he is. He's a ball dominator, shot chucker that doesn't play much defense. KPJ also kind of in the same family. Kris Dunn will give you that, poor man's Alex Caruso kind of deal. And maybe that's being harsh to Kris Dunn. Maybe he's not a poor man's Alex Caruso. Maybe he's just a little bit worse. I don't think he's as good of a basketball player as Alex Caruso. But Kris Dunn was fantastic at Providence. He was a top 10 pick. He's bounced around, obviously, in the league. Was drafted by the Timberwolves and then traded to the Bulls for Jimmy Butler. Spent 3 full seasons in Chicago and started the majority of his games in each of those 3 seasons. And then he played for the Hawks for only 4 games in 2021. Looked like he was going to have trouble staying in the league. The following season, he only played 14 games for Portland, so still looked like he was going to have trouble staying in the league. And then 2023 was picked up by Utah, played 22 games, averaged a career-high 13 points. Actually, no, his second highest scoring season, 13.2 points a game, and looked like, okay, he's definitely got a place to stay in the NBA. And then last season had that very solid season. So Clippers are going with him. Hopefully he can be an elite point of attack defender. And in my opinion, he's the guy that is the safest bet to come off the bench on a consistent basis next season. Because, of course, if we do start the starting lineup of Terrence Mann, Derrick Jones alongside Kawhi, Harden, and Zoo, then Norm is still in that 6-man role. I don't know if we go 2 offense-only guys in that backcourt. I think we put Kris Dunn with Norm. The thing is, can Kris Dunn shoulder that second unit ball handling wise, right? Because Norm's not really an on-ball creator. Are we going to always stagger one of Harden or Kawhi so that we can run the offense through one of them at all times? Or are we going to sit both of them at the same time? Because last year we had Russ and Paul. Now it's a totally different situation. So who else can step up into that shot creation role, that run our offense role? That's where you got to go to Bones Hyland and Kevin Porter Jr. And coming up, going to be making their case for the backup point guard spot, starting with KPJ. I got to tell you a little something about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers your first listen of the day. For your second listen, enjoy the Locked On NBA podcast. There's no offseason in the NBA, and Locked On NBA provides daily basketball analysis from national and local experts in 30 minutes or less. No one keeps you as informed and entertained as Locked On NBA. Available on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. All right, Clipper Nation. Going to be talking now about Kevin Porter Jr.'s case to be the backup point guard. Now, last year, KPJ spent the season playing in Greece and was very good there. His last full NBA season was the 2022-23 season. He played in 59 games, started every single one of those. He averaged 19 points a game, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, and a steal on 44% shooting, 37% from 3, and 78% from the line. You might be thinking to yourself, he averaged all that in the NBA, and you're talking about Kris Dunn? Yeah, so Kevin Porter Jr. is an incredible talent. If you want to go back and check out my extensive episode on KPJ that I did a couple of weeks back, check that out on this channel or on this podcast page. We went in depth about his past, the controversy surrounding him and whatnot. But if we're just talking basketball, which we are right now in this episode, KPJ, to me, is easily the most talented offensive player of these three. He averaged 19 points a game in the NBA. Granted, for a really bad team that has looked better since he's gone, but people just can't go out there and average 19 points in the NBA like that easily. You have to be able to score. You have to be able to be trusted by a coaching staff with those on-ball responsibilities and shot attempts. And KPJ, he's got size. He's got athleticism. He's got a great handle. The lefty, he kind of has that step-back James Harden in his game a bit. So KPJ playing under James Harden, that'll be interesting to see that level, because James Harden is kind of a mentor to those younger guards on the team. We hear about all the stories with his relationship with Tyrese Maxey. Can he do similar things for Kevin Porter and kind of simplify his game a little bit and show him, what can keep him in the league for a long time? Because if there's one thing James Harden doesn't get quite enough credit for, it's his longevity. We're talking about a guy going into year 16, and he's still at an all-star level. We're talking about he could average 20 and 10 this year. I'm putting my money on him averaging 20 and 10 this year. And his athleticism has waned tremendously. If you go back and watch 2018, 2019 Harden highlights, he's gained weight too. It's very clear. But it's his skill and his, smarts and his vision of the floor, his processing speed and all that has allowed him to still be such a very good player at this age. Even though he was very reliant on a great first step, but he's got such a great jump shot and handle, he still can create space and still can get his shots off. KPJ, how much can he get better with Harden, practicing with him and being around him all the time? Now, KPJ has potential in the pick and roll in terms of being a passer. So if you want a guy that you want to come in and run that second unit when James Harden's out and you really want an on-ball guard, KPJ is a better option than Bones. He's bigger by several inches. He's had more success in the NBA scoring the basketball. He's never been on a team, though, that has any sort of shot to win anything, to make it anywhere. Bones Highland obviously has only been on championship caliber teams or teams that believe that they're championship caliber and has gotten taken out of the rotation. So as far as KPJ, if the Clippers want to go offense heavy and go with an explosive scoring backcourt off the bench of KPJ and Norm, that's the move then. If they want to go with scoring, KPJ and Norm, then you can fill it out with either Amir Coffey or Jordan Miller, Nico Batum, and Bamba. To me, I mean, that's a little more explosive. When you have an Amir Coffey and a Nico, that gives you some of that point of attack defense, that perimeter defense you need. That's not a lineup, though, that I'm comfortable with, all 5 of those guys playing at once. Like, I remember Vinny Del Negro in 2013. He used to go with total bench, which we used to be able to get away with because our bench was so good. It was Bledsoe, Jamal Crawford, Lamar Odom, Matt Barnes, and then either Ryan Hollins or Ronny Turioff. And it was mainly because Bledsoe, Jamal Crawford, and Barnes were so good that season. But this one, KPJ, Norm, Nico, Amir, and Bamba, that's a lot on KPJ to create. And I don't know. The thing is, it's kind of similar with Dunn in the lineup that I mentioned earlier. Or if Dunn's the backup point guard playing with those same guys. So what you really need is probably staggering of Kawhi and James. Or else maybe KPJ will play. An 11-man rotation is a little too much. So last year we saw Ty go with 9. But he went with 9 a little too much throughout the season. Because he really found a 9 that worked. But those guys were on the older side and got a little burned out. So I would say 10 would be the nice number throughout the season. If we can have that. And then, obviously, there's going to be load management. There's going to be chances for other guys, Kobe Browns, Jordan Millers, to play. But I am a little concerned. So that's one thing I'm taking away from this episode is the second units that I'm mentioning, if one of James Harden or Kawhi Leonard are not in, you're relying on Kris Dunn or KPJ to create a lot. And then Norman Powell to try to show some more on-ball chops, which we'll see about that. But KPJ, he's clearly the most talented offensively of the 3. There's no doubt. And on my recent appearance on Locked On Fantasy Basketball, which will be out by the time you listen to this, and you should go check that out with the Locked On GOAT, Josh Lloyd, I talked about that and KPJ. And he kept mentioning KPJ because he's such a talented player. You would think he's going to get into the rotation. I truly just don't know because the Bones Hyland question mark. And coming up, going to be talking about where his role on the team is, if there is one. All right. So to close things out, I'm going to be talking about the guy that we've actually had on the Clippers and has played games for us out of these 3. And that's Bones Hyland. Bones Hyland will be entering his 4th season. His rookie season, he played 69 games out of 82 for the Denver Nuggets. He came off the bench for Jamal Murray. He played off the bench alongside Monty Morris, and then when Jamal Murray tore his ACL, he was the full-time backup. He averaged 10 points a game that season to go along with 3 assists, but the knock on him was his efficiency. He shot 40% from the field. He did shoot 37% from 3, though, which is not bad, and the majority of his shots were 3s. So his true shooting percentage probably makes him look better because he shot 86% from the line. And he did average 9 points in the playoffs that year, and he had that huge, I believe it was Game 4, but he shot 36% from the field in the playoffs and 35 from 3. Then he got traded to the Clippers midway through the 2023 season. He became our backup point guard for the rest of the way, and I thought he was very solid. He averaged 11 points, 3.5 boards, 3 assists in 19 minutes. Shot 40% from the field, 35% from 3, and 75% from the foul line. Look, the field goal percentage is a real thing. You know, he's a smaller guard. He's not the strongest in the world. A lot of jump shots, a lot of contested shots. And he doesn't take great shots. But here's the thing. Guys like that, like the Jamal Crawfords, the Lou Williams, or whatever, they're not always the most efficient. At least when they started their careers, Jamal Crawford and Lou Williams, they weren't super efficient. Bones Hyland is still crazy enough. I know he's heading into year 4, but he's still getting used to getting consistent minutes at the NBA level. Like, for real. Because besides his rookie year, he's kind of had a stunt in his development. He played 14 games for us in 2023 in the regular season. That was it. In the playoffs, he played in all 5 of those games against Phoenix. He averaged 9 points a game, but he didn't shoot well at all. And then last year, he played 37 games out of 82, so a lot of DNPs. And his stats aren't even worth mentioning. 7 points, a career low, 39%, 33 from 3. He had that really good game against Chicago when James Harden didn't play. But I don't know. There's a lot of people that don't know of Bones Hyland and don't believe that Bones Hyland is an NBA player for a long time. I disagree with that. I think there's a lot of upside there. I think Bones Hyland in this league, like his ceiling to me is going to be a Jamal Crawford disciple. Like a guy that comes off the bench, can play making the pick and roll, can get buckets, is going to excite the crowd. He's got a great handle, really quick. He is really fast with the ball. If you go to a game and you watch him play, he is really fast with the ball. And the one thing he doesn't get enough credit for, he's a very underrated passer. He really is. And people just don't think of Bones Hyland as a good passer because they see him as a shot chucker. But if you actually watch him consistently, he can pass. He's very quick at the ball. We're talking about a team that has lacked speed, athleticism. He might not have the most bounce, but he's very quick. And he's got long arms. You know, the defensive knock on him is valid, but I've noticed that he, to me, has gotten better defensively as a Clipper as time has gone on, but we just haven't had enough of an opportunity to watch him keep learning how to play NBA defense, keep testing himself defensively from a physicality perspective and from like a scheme perspective. I mean, he has potential in the passing lanes to be a good off-ball defender. We've seen glimpses of that in his minutes with the Clippers when he's gotten chances. But the main thing with Bones is this. I'm willing to give him a shot as that backup point guard. It feels like he has patiently waited his turn. And the Harden trade really hurt him because he was going to be our backup point guard. And I remember, you can go check out my vlogs on my personal channel. I remember going to the arena in the preseason and in those first 2 games and first 3 games really, because in that Orlando game where James Harden didn't play, because he had just gotten there, Bones was awesome. Actually, no, I think that was one of the games that Bones played and he wasn't awesome. Let me check. We'll do a double take on that. That may have been the game where he started slumping a bit and then he kind of got taken out of the rotation. Oh, no, he did play well against Orlando. He had 17 points. So there you go, right? He had 17 points. And at that point, he had double figures in the first 4 games of the season. 17 points in the opener against Portland, 12 points at Utah in that loss. That was it Jordan Clarkson that made that game winner. Then 18 points against San Antonio, 17 points against Orlando. We're 3-1 at that point. He only had double-figure points 7 more times the rest of the season. 7 more times after 4 times the first 4 games of the season. So, actually, no, maybe even less. Just 6 more times. So, there you go. I just want Bones to get a chance. Because here's the facts of the matter. Lawrence Frank said it in the presser a couple weeks back. If the opportunity for Bones Hyland to get minutes is not there, if there are no opportunities for Bones Hyland to get minutes with the Clippers this year, and they choose KPJ really, because I really don't understand the point of having KPJ and Bones. I can't lie. It's very redundant. It's 2 guys that come in and get buckets. And KPJ is the better basketball player, but Bones Hyland's the guy that I want to see succeed more because, you know, we've had him here for sitting on the bench the all of last season, and so many fans are ready to give this guy a chance. He's one of those guys that just get the place jumping. I mean, when Bones goes on one of those flurries, he's got this amazing enthusiasm about him that just uplifts everybody around him. I just want to see him get a chance to grow as an NBA player. There's a lot of people that don't believe he could play on a championship rotation. But here's the thing. We're not a championship rotation right now. We have to prove some things in these first couple months of the season. And I think we're going to be better than people realize. But there's no reason why you say, Bones Hyland, you're not good enough to get into this rotation. Kris Dunn is so much better than you. Kris Dunn is going to be better for what we need. But the KPJ thing, that's what makes you nervous about Bones. If I had to make a prediction, I don't think Bones Hyland will be on the Clippers by the trade deadline. By February, he won't be here anymore, which is very sad. But at this point, like, I'm more excited for the Intuit Dome than anything. I think our team's going to be solid, but it all depends on Kawhi's health, and I'm not going to convince you that that's a fun game to play anymore. The fact of the matter is our stadium is opening on Thursday, and it's looking insane. And if you want to see more of it, check out my video on my own channel. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod. Subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for even more LA Clipper and LA sports content. And, of course, Locked On Clippers. You can listen wherever you get your podcast, even if you can't watch. Take a listen. And moral of the story before I close out, Bones Hyland, I think he deserves a chance, but I really don't know where he fits because Kris Dunn, unless, here's the other option. We could start Norman Powell for some added offense because we got Derrick Jones. We bring Terrence Mann off the bench, take Amir Coffey out of the rotation, and then have Kris Dunn with Bones. And Kris Dunn might be good enough defensively, and he's out there with Terrence and Nico that we can get away with having Bones. So we'll see. There's plenty of options to explore. Maybe that's another episode to play with those options. The age-old proverb continues, go Clippers. Let me know what you thought of the episode.